Hi, and welcome to this week's yin and pranayama class. If you're not familiar with pranayama, pranayama is simply breath work, and it may not be so simple, but we are going to keep it simple for today. And really, what we're going to use it for is to move our focus directly to the breath as we move through our poses today, to help us stay in the poses longer and to help us find a little more relaxation as we do so. So, as we get started, I suggest having some blocks, maybe a bolster, and perhaps even a blanket as well. So, it's always more helpful to have your props near you on your mat than to have them hidden away somewhere, wishing that you had their support. So, props are a beautiful thing to have. Let's go ahead and get started. And today we're actually going to start on our bellies. So let's lay down on our mats, belly to the mat. And to make yourself comfortable, you can have a folded blanket underneath your arms, or you can just fold your hands across one another and let the forehead rest down on the top of the back of the hands. And now I would prefer if your head was straight down, so make yourself as comfortable as you can there so your neck is nice and straight and we're not turning from one side versus the other. And the reason for this is we're going to get started by bringing ourselves a little more into balance by working on our breath. And to begin, let's just make ourselves comfortable and start to pull our focus onto our breath. Just noticing as we start, how is our breath currently? Is it maybe shallow or a little ragged? Maybe it's nice and deep. The first breath work we're going to practice today in this prone pose will be a 3-part breath. And during this breath, you can think of belly, ribs, and chest. Those are the 3 parts. We'll start by taking an inhale. And as we do so, we'll fill up the belly, expanding the belly like a balloon. Notice how the belly roots down into the earth. And then let's just exhale and release that balloon. Maybe you notice how the belly button draws a little bit closer towards the spine. On the next inhale, let's fill up the belly once more, traveling all the way to fill up the lower abdomen. And then let's think of expanding the ribs, the front and the back of the ribs. They move along the entire 360 portion of the torso. Let's exhale, release the ribs, and then feel the belly start to empty. On the next inhale, we'll start by filling up the belly, expanding the ribs like a butterfly, and then filling up the chest. Full breath all the way to the top of the chest, and then we'll release it from top to bottom. Continue once more with that 3-part breath, starting with the belly, expanding to the ribs, filling all the way up to the top of the chest, and then exhale, release. We'll continue for about 3 or 4 more rounds, using your own pace. I never expect you to follow my breath pacing because, of course, we're all different. We're all in different stages of our practice. So don't ever feel like you need to force your breath just to follow along. You can keep your own internal rhythm. And be mindful as we do this breath work, especially on our bellies like this. Notice how you bring more attention to the back line of the body and how it's filling up the back, expanding through the spine. There's so much attention as we pay attention to our abdominal area. Probably too much time spent on the abdominal area. We should think about the back as well. As we move through the poses today, we may come in and out of using 3-part breath, but again, let's just try not to over control it. Just take it as your own pace, as a little experiment in breath work today. On the next exhale, we'll release it all out. And from here, we're going to stay on our belly. And then you can come to rest maybe on the right side, the right cheek, and draw that left knee up for a half frog, opening up the inside of that left hip. Staying here for a moment. Feeling the gentle rise and the fall of the belly and the chest against the comfort of the earth. I welcome you if you feel open in your low back. You can take this pose to Sphinx arms and lift the upper body up. So the elbows are just slightly in front of the shoulders. Again, this will be more intense in the low back. So if you find that you have a low back that is more closed off and needs a little more tenderness, I suggest staying down on the earth. Wherever you're at, we'll hold for just a couple more minutes. Yin and breathwork go so well together, especially as we hold some of these intense poses for quite a long time. Utilizing our breath will allow us to stay in stillness as we hold these poses. And working on these bigger joints, the knees, the hips, we feel things much more intensely as we tend to be very tight in those areas. The vast majority of us tight physically and even emotionally, so you may feel things rise up for you. Remember, you can always hit pause and give yourself a little break. If you're up on your forearms, let's go ahead and lower ourselves back down so that we can more easily push the leg back. Bring the left leg back, and this time we'll bring the right knee up into our half frog position. Maybe roll onto your left hip slightly so you can make it into that position. And then begin just by starting out on the left cheek. Finding your edge and your limit in this pose. Maybe we stay down the whole time. Or maybe after about a minute you want to come up onto the forearms and experience the deepening into the right hip. Wherever you're at, access your pose and then try to find that stillness within you by using the breath. coming up to forearms if you feel ready. If you are on your forearms, keep the chest lifted. Feel the heart center rising up towards the sky. Eyes are closed, or else the gaze is either directly in front of you or just slightly down at the mat. And we'll all start to lower down onto the mat if we're up on our forearms so that we can move that right leg back. And from here, we'll all join each other in a nice Sphinx pose, lifting ourselves back once more up onto the forearms, feeling the hips so that they're nice and even, maybe shifting from left to right just a little bit. Feet are nice and wide so that we all make space for our low back and give it a little bit of love. And then sitting up or lifting the chest up nice and tall. And maybe we come back to that 3-part breath again in this position. Notice how it feels as your belly fills up. Since we have that even closer contact with the mat in this Sphinx pose due to our curved lumbar. But as you breathe here, just continue to fill up the ribs and the chest. So we're not closing off our breath in any way. If you would like to deepen your back bend for the last minute, I invite you to join me in seal pose. Take the hands out just slightly wider and then start to straighten the elbows. Maybe even walk the hands in a little bit closer towards the body. Find your comfort level. It's all dependent on your back. Continue to breathe. The more you keep breathing and the less you hold your breath as we're in these poses, the more relaxation you'll find, the more that your muscles will relax, your nervous system will know that it's okay to release their grip. And from there, we'll start to work more deeply as we hold longer and start to find our way into the fascia and the deep tissues of the body. If you are up in seal pose, let's go ahead and release it down. We're going to push back and come into a child's pose. For our child's pose today, if you have a bolster or a very nice pillow that's supportive, let's go ahead and grab that. You can still do this right on your mat without any props. You can do this whole class without any props, that's for sure. But if you have a bolster or a pillow, let's go ahead and slide that right in between the knees. We're just going to drape our body over it. You can take your neck to the side to make space for yourself. And maybe allow the arms just to rest alongside the bolster. Feel the shoulders just drape and widen as we rest here. And just recover from those back bends for the last couple of minutes. And using that tactile sensation, whether you're on the floor or if you have the bolster, you may notice it a little more if you have the bolster against your abdomen. But maybe you can sense a change in your breath now that we've been practicing for a few minutes. Maybe you notice that it's becoming more of a habit. Maybe you don't need to work as hard to send the breath or to expand the ribs. Maybe it's just something that your body needs. And it's saying, oh yeah, this is something we should be doing more of. I know I could stay here all day, but we're going to move on to our next asana in our yin sequence. So let's slowly move our bolster or pillow just out of the way. And we'll go ahead and push back into a downward facing dog, only using it as a transition here. From downward facing dog, let's step that left knee up and bring it just behind the left wrists. And we'll come into our swan pose, half swan pose or half pigeon if you're used to the vinyasa terms. And once you enter your swan pose, let's just double check the hips so that we're nice and even. We're not falling to the left more than the right. Perhaps you want a blanket underneath this hip, or if you feel like you're sitting up pretty high, you may want to have a block underneath the left glute, to be kind of between the left glute and the left thigh to feel supported. From there, adjust your left shin, either bring it in more at an angle so that the foot is closer to you, or if you are very open, you may have the left shin more parallel with the top edge of the mat. That can be very intense on the knee, so if you're not there yet, let's not force it. Finding your version of half swan. We'll just start seated nice and tall, rooting down into the earth, feeling centered so that we're sitting nice and tall through the spine. Shoulders are relaxed. And we start to soften through the neck and the jaw and the face. Hips tend to, for the most part, have a lot of residual tightness in them. But we can recognize that, come into our depth, move slowly, move softly, but with intention. If it feels good for you in your swan pose, you can start to walk your torso forward and drape yourself over the front left shin. If you were lowered down onto your arms or maybe all the way onto your belly, you can go ahead and push yourself back to an upright position. We're going to take a little stretch here after doing that half swan pose. And let's just take the left hand so it's behind the left hip, kind of in a straight line out from the left hip. Give yourself a room maybe about 10 to 12 inches away. And let's rock onto the left hip. So I'm shifting over to the left. I'm going to bring this left shin in a little bit closer to me. This is going to be our kickstand. From here, I'm going to push down into the left shin, lift the hips. You can stay down on this right knee and keep that lowered if that works for you. Or you can also lift the right knee, lift the right arm up as we make a big old stretch. You can feel it all the way down the front of the right leg, all the way through the opening of the front right shoulder. And then go ahead and lower yourself down. Coming into an all fours position, hips over knees and the shoulders over the wrists. We'll take a few shoulder openings here. So on the inhale, let's lift that right arm up. Extend it to the sky, and then exhale. We'll just draw that right hand underneath the left shoulder. Inhale it up. Exhale through. Inhale up once more. This time we're going to exhale through and then bring ourselves all the way down onto the ground for a thread the needle pose. So the right side of the face goes down onto the mat. And you have that right shoulder resting down onto the earth. The left hand can come right beside you on the mat, maybe pushing into the earth a little bit more so you feel a stretch into the back of that right shoulder. You could also have the arm out in front of you. This feels quite lovely as well. Just kind of depends on our proportions and where we want to feel this stretch. So that really is dependent on you, on your arm placement. You could also have the left arm behind your back. If that feels good, you may find that adds a little bit more of a balance challenge by removing that little extra pedestal from your support. Wherever you're at, go ahead and close your eyes. We'll take a few breaths here before moving on to the other side. On the next inhale, let's take that left hand, place it back down next to your face, press firmly into the earth, and then we'll lift that right arm back up to the sky for a great big stretch, and then place the right hand back down onto the mat. Let's do that once more on the left side. This time we'll inhale the left hand up, reach, feel, notice the difference on your spine as we rotate from one direction to the other. Exhale, bring it through. Let's inhale it up. Exhale, thread it through. One more time, inhaling it up. Exhale, thread the needle pose on the left side. Lower the left side of the face to the mat. Find your position for your right hand, either beside the face, maybe extend it out in front of you, or if you want to take the bind and wrap it behind your back. Go and find what suits you best today. I feel like I need a little more leverage on this side and really intensify that stretch on my left shoulder. And maybe you've noticed that my mat looks a little different today. I do have a double stack on my mat for my left knee as I'm still having actually quite a bit of sensitivity into my left knee after a fall I had about a month ago. So it's still healing. Unfortunately, it's still black and blue, but it is getting better. But don't just fight through the pain. Trying to hold these poses for a steady length of time and to grit your teeth through them is not what we're looking for. We want to send the message to our nervous system that this is where we need to be. This time placing the right hand down next to the face, pressing firmly into the earth, lifting the left hand up, rotating the spine, and then bring it back into tabletop. Amazing. Let's tuck the toes, push back into downward dog just for a moment, and then we'll bring that right knee through and, of course, do our swan pose on the right side. Adjust your shin, even out your hips. The leg behind you should be nice and straight. And we'll come to a nice seat in our half swan. Remember, props are there. You can have that blanket or a block underneath the right glute. And if you feel like doing so, you can lower yourself down onto your forearms or even drape the torso completely over that front right shin. Notice that the transition of weight and the sensation as you move the torso forward will change. So depending on what you're looking for, maybe you want to stay upright as I'm doing on this side, or maybe it feels better to be lowered down. But no matter what, no judgment. It's just you and me, and I know that whatever you're doing is something that you need for yourself. Hopefully whatever intensity you were feeling at the beginning of this pose is starting to feel pretty good. We're going to very slowly transition into that little stretch. Remember, using care because things, as we hold for a little bit longer, things are a little looser. The right hand's going to go behind the right hip, maybe about 10 or 12 inches away. We're going to bring this right shin over towards the left side of the mat a little bit more. And then we're going to push into this right shin really firmly and lift up the hips. You can keep the left knee on the ground, or if it feels nice, go ahead and lift that left knee, press firmly into the left foot, and bring the left arm up and behind you as we stretch from fingertips all the way down to the left toes. And you can just let your head hang. Take a nice deep breath in here. And then exhale. We'll go ahead and bring it back down. Let's come back into a tabletop pose again. This time we're just going to use this to start with aligning our hips and our knees. They are going to stay right where they're at, and we're going to walk those hands out for a puppy pose. In our puppy pose, you can have the hands all the way down on the mat, keeping them nice and connected with the earth. Or you can also come up on the fingertips. This will make the stretch a little more deeper as we start to lower the chest towards the earth. The forehead can come down to the mat, or you can even take the chin to the mat. That will make this pose more intense. As you move with intention, trying to have the chest reach the mat. Again, it doesn't have to reach there. That's just the direction, the intention that we're looking for in the pose. Puppy pose, again, a nice back bend, but of course a very deep shoulder opener if done correctly. Just keep breathing. You can always have the hands flat on the mat. I'm staying slightly lifted, mostly, it does feel very good, but I also don't want to have my mic constantly being pushed into the mat so that you don't hear that little extra vibration. We'll take 5 more breaths in our puppy pose. And then start to shift yourself forward to come out of the puppy pose. You can take a moment of rest in a child's pose. I suggest bringing the arms back alongside your body so that you can fully rest those shoulders. And let's inhale our way up, and we'll come to take a seat right in the center of our mat. Get ready for straddle pose. I am going to use a blanket to sit myself up just a little bit higher, giving your hips a tiny bit of height, or maybe even sitting up on a block, can help allow ourselves to tilt that pelvic bowl forward and get a little bit more stretch versus if we were just sitting directly onto the earth. Often, if we're sitting directly onto the earth, we'll find that the back starts to round before we can really get any stretch into the back of the legs. So keeping the back as straight as possible is the goal so that we start to feel some stretch into the hamstrings. But if you don't want to go for that stretch today and you're like, I just want to feel just a nice release into my back and just to feel cared for and have this wonderful, nourishing forward fold position, you certainly are allowed to fold or round your back as you go forward. It's all in what you're looking for. So wherever you're at, we're going to open up the legs widely, start to bend at the hips, and then just fold forward. Come only as low as you need to go until you feel a stretch. So it could come down just a couple of inches, maybe forearms, maybe you are all the way onto your belly. If you are, I salute you. And wherever you're at, we'll just breathe. Again, the hamstrings really tight, so you might really feel this. This also is very deep into the hips. So even though we have been working on the hips some, you might be like, this just is a lot for me today. Well, let's only come down a little bit and then just come back to the breath. Inhale all the way down to the belly. Opening up the ribs. Picture the ribs opening, expanding like butterfly wings. Breath filling up the chest, and then exhale, release it all out until you feel the belly deflate, almost like a little balloon. Once your muscles and your body start to relax and start to get a little bit more into it, maybe you find yourself somehow making it just a little bit closer towards the earth. Sometimes that happens without you even realizing. If your eyes are shut, all of a sudden you open your eyes and, oh, look at that. I'm lower than I thought I ever could be. As you do get lower and lower in your straddle, sometimes I like to have a block right in front of me and rest my forehead on the block. You can work those magical 3 heights of the block to find whatever works for you. Because sometimes if the neck and the head are supported, even though as you're sitting here, if you're just letting it hang, you may feel, well, I'm pretty relaxed. But maybe try a block underneath your head and you'll find, wow, I'm getting a lot more out of that because now I have something to rest against. My neck and my head are even more relaxed. On the next inhale, let's use our hands to bring ourselves back to an upright position. You can also use your hands to bring your legs back in. We're just going to stay bent at the knees. We'll take a couple of windshield wipers before moving on. Just kind of feeling that rebound effect from that lengthy hold. And then we'll slowly move into our next folding position, which is a seated forward fold. So adjust your blanket. Again, I encourage you to sit up slightly, whether it's on a bolster, block, blanket. Give yourself some space. And from here, we're going to start with a bend in the knees. And, maybe you're up here. Maybe you have the knees just slightly bent as you see here. And then forward fold from the hips. Allow the torso just to rest onto the top of the legs. Feeling supported. We'll take a couple of breaths with the knees deeply bent. I understand you might have props underneath you, so wiggling backward on your bum might throw off your positioning of your blocks, but you can either wiggle backward with the hips to straighten out the knees even more. If you're like, you know what, it feels really good to have a bent knee today and I'm getting a lot out of this bent knee, then by all means stay right there. But if you want to take a moment and to straighten the knees just slightly, go ahead and then return to that forward fold. And as we hang out here in our forward fold, we're going to come back into that 3-part breath that we've discussed throughout this sequence today. Inhale, filling up the belly, feel the back body open. Rise up through the ribs, expand through the chest, and then exhale. Feel everything start to release. Stay soft in the shoulders, soft across the collarbone. Allow the head to hang heavy. Again, inhale. And exhale. Use this sensation of having the torso draped over the front of the legs so that you can have that feel of that touch of the chest and the belly widening on the inhale, and then everything drawing in towards the spine on the exhale. To come out of this forward fold, we're going to again press our hands down into the mat, lift ourselves to an upright position. This time, let's draw the feet in so that the soles of the feet are flat onto the earth. Bring the arms to the inside of the feet, and we're just going to allow ourselves to drape forward and the head to hang heavy. In our final relaxing shape here, we'll take just the next couple of moments as we close out our practice, just to notice the sensation in our body. Maybe you feel more of an energy moving through the body just by feeling that cycle of the breath entering through the nose, traveling down through the throat, filling up the belly, the ribs, the chest, expanding on the front and the back side of the body. The warmth in the hips we've created today. The care and respect that we have for our bodies and for ourselves as we make our way onto the mat as much as we can. On the next inhale, let's go ahead and sit up tall. Come into a nice, easy cross-legged position at the center of our mats. From here, we'll just take an inhale, bring the hands up to the sky, connect them at the center, and draw the palms down towards the heart with a slight tuck of the chin as we close our practice. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your yin practice today. A nice long practice to slow down and to re-emphasize the fact that we all need time to slow down for ourselves. And I also hope that you enjoyed your breathwork practice in this sequence today. If you did, please leave me a comment below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you get notifications every single week when we have brand new sequences coming up on Sunday. And Also, I am planning a month long of new sequences coming up for the new year. So, January 2023, mark your calendar. Monday through Friday, every single week, there will be a short sequence, just a little tidbit to keep us motivated in the new year. So that's a little something to look forward to as we approach the new year. As always, have a great day. Make it a good one. Bye.